Alright, so I'm going to start this video off by showing you how I propagate my monstera cuttings and also my pothos cuttings. Alright, now here is just a short little video just to show you what my monstera looked like before I started to cut to get some cuttings off of it. You can see here on the right hand side it's just a mumbled jumbled mess. So I have already cut some of that off and I'm propagating that in water. So this is after I cut off some of it and I still have some more to cut off, but the ones that I'm going to cut off now is going to be the ones I'm going to propagate in different substrates, not the water. Really, I'm just trying to experiment which is the best method. I also want to add that I have just recently moved my monstera over to the window. This is where it was at before, not, in the window as before. And I also want to add that I do rotate my monstera. So even though you see these on the right hand side, they were actually on the left hand side and I rotated around so that I can make those cuttings. I did keep it with a grow light and I would rotate that so that all parts of it will get some of the grow light. So just wanted to add that little tidbit because right now it looks like it's reaching for the sun, but it was not even on that side, it was on the other side with grow lights. So later on in this video, I'm going to show you how I propagate the rest of these cuttings in different substrates. Alright, so here is one of the cuttings. I did 2 jars. Here's one of them. This is day 6 of being in the water. I do change this water out maybe every 3 days. So you would see like that yellowish white color that was at the bottom. That was like a root trying to come in. And then here at the top, you can see there's a root also trying to come in there as well. And then on the bottom here, you'll see that yellowish white color trying to poke through there. Those are basically roots trying to form and trying to come in. And this is what it's looking like just a few days later on the 8th day. So this was the last plant that I just showed, and this is what that root is looking like now. But for my cuttings, I do use bottled water, and I also put some hydrogen peroxide in my bottled water as well. So here is some hydrogen peroxide. I just use a little droppity dropper, and I do 3 drops of this into the bottled water. All right, stop. Let me make this very clear. I am not saying you have to use the bottled water because I just know there's going to be a Karen or a Jaren running to the comments talking about, well, I didn't use bottled water and it still worked. I am not saying you have to use bottled water. I am showing you how I did it and I'm showing you my results from how I did it. No, you do not have to use bottled water, but this is how I am doing it. Okay? Okay. So basically, once again, I just do 3 of these. It's not filled up all the way. There's 1. There's 2. And there's the last and final one. Then I just put the lid back on. And I just kind of shake it around. And then I use that for my cuttings. And I also use it for my vegetables. If you've seen my first plant video, I did explain how after this started dying off, when it grew back, the leaves became big. So I'm not sure why they became big, but I am loving them big. But I can't really answer the question of why my leaves are huge like this, and it literally started dying and then they grew back this big. So, but I do not like these vines, these leafless vines. There's 2 vines on this Pothos, and I do want to cut them down because this is yellow. I mean, There's this one is like green and yellow, but this one is yellow. So I'm not sure if anything is going to grow, but there is a leaf on this vine that is growing. So I'm not sure, but I do want to cut it down because once again, I am propagating some other leaves and we'll be able to hopefully later on put those in this pot and get lots of vines going. So I am going to cut this in maybe 4 pieces or so and put this in sphagnum moss. Sphagnum, whatever it's called. We're gonna put it in that moss and then put it in a baggie and hopefully we'll get some roots going. But I'm not sure because once again it's yellow, it's not completely green. I am actually going to cut all the way up to this leaf. And then we're going to see if we can get this leaf to propagate. So I found a glass cup that this cutting can rest in. I'm wondering if there's going to be a difference between this one and these because this one's in a glass and I think these get warmer than the plastic cup. These have been propagating for 9 days now, and oh, there's some action there. All right, well, I do see some action happening. So let me shut my mouth, but we'll leave these separate than these because obviously these have been in the water for 9 days now. And there's a little action happening, but I actually did make another cutting from the second vine and we're going to put that in here as well. And these will propagate together and we'll leave these in here together. You don't want too many in the same cup anyways, so we'll just do it that way. All right, so now this is now day 24. So I just want to show you, I recently just put these Pothos cuttings in there because I heard that was also a good idea to do. But this is now day 24, so just to show you the Pothos cuttings, there's some roots there. All of the Pothos has roots on them after 24 days. And then I do want to show you also the roots on the monstera after 24 days. Once again, I just put those Pothos in yesterday actually. So I did hear that if you put a Pothos cutting in, there is a growing hormone that releases that helps the monstera out. So this one is the one that had the big root on it. I'm trying to get this Pothos out without ruining it. So this monstera is the one that had that really big root on there. And this is after 24 days of me doing those water changes and me making the water exactly how I stated. So there's several people that say to not change the water, and then there's several people that say to change the water. This is a new leaf growing in still, and look at that root production. Once again, I change my water and I do my water how I just showed you how I do my water, and this is after 24 days. So I think the whole water changing and not changing water, I think that just depends on the plant really, because like I said, there's a lot of people that say to change the water, a lot of people that say to not change the water. I'm one of the people that say change the water because that has worked for me. For those that, you know, do what works for you. If changing the water works for you, then keep changing the water. If not changing it works for you, like it works for me, do that. And if neither of those methods do it, do what I do when I add the hydrogen peroxide, the heating pad, in the bottled water, and maybe that'll work for you like it works for me. But these are what the roots are looking like after 24 days. Alright, so I did want to add this part here. The reason why I change out my water is because if I don't, I will have these little floaties in there. I don't know what them floaties is, so it gets dumped out and then I rinse out that glass and put my cuttings back in there and fill it back up with water. Alright, so I got some sphagnum moss here, and this is for the rest of the cuttings from the vine. I'm going to put some water in here, just the same water that I made with my hydrogen peroxide. I'm going to put that water in here, and then I'm going to put some of this inside of the cup just to get this wet. Alright, and I'm noticing quickly, this is the first time that I am using this, but I am noticing quickly that this looks like a brick, just like the coconut coir in my last video. It's going to take a little time for that to break down. So while that's breaking down, you can go ahead and cut your vine cuttings. Okay, so now with these cuttings, you basically want to make sure that each cutting has a node on it, which is basically where you can see it starting to like kind of split off right there. That is a node. So basically the ones that, all the little ring arounds that you see, those are nodes where you can see it splitting off. So you do want to make sure it has nodes because that's where those roots are going to start growing in. So as long as you have nodes, you should be getting some roots on these vines. But once again, mine are yellow, so we're just going to do kind of an experiment to see if they even grows on yellow vines as well. All right, with this piece, you can see there's a lot of nodes here at the top. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and cut this into 2 pieces, hoping that one isn't too short. Just ended up cutting a little piece off, and I'm just going to do this whole thing. I'm not sure if this is too short or if it even matters, but we are going to take these cuttings and we're going to put them in sphagnum moss and in a bag. So yeah, this is really going to be an experiment because I do not know if this is going to work or not. So hopefully it does. So we got some of our wet sphagnum moss. We're just going to put it in a bag here. And then we are going to take our cuttings and we're going to put those in there as well. Now we're putting it in a bag so that that humidity can trap that heat in there. And then we're going to put this in a bright space. Now, I put this on a heating pad. This is plastic, so don't want to do that because it's going to burn. So let me put some more moss in there. Once again, this is an experiment, so we are going to see if this produces any roots at all. And once again, my vines are like yellow. Some have some green in there, but it's pretty much yellow. So we're gonna see if this even works and seal that up. And then we're gonna put this in a bright space so that that heat will be trapped in that bag and it will get some humidity from the wet sphagnum moss. After turning my plant around, I did see that there was another vine and it was more greener than the ones that I had previously put in here. So that vine is in here as well. So it's this piece and it's also this piece too. So we did put those in there as well because like I said, when I turned my plant around, I seen another vine. Not as long as the other two were, but I went ahead and cut that off too. Alright, so it has been 6 days, and if I can try and get this one out, this is from the second cutting, and y'all, do y'all see that? It has started to grow roots, and this is one of the yellow vines, not one of the green ones. So there's even one kind of coming there. So yeah, it is working with yellow vines. So I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna have a problem with the green ones as well, but this is after 6 days and it is growing roots. So this method, putting it in a bag with the wet sphagnum moss, opening it up for maybe over every 2 days or so and spraying some more water in there is what I'm doing. And I got some roots, so there we go. So it is now day 16 of the sphagnum moss vines, and the one that I put in there last that was already green, it has a new leaf coming in. Some of the other vines also have new leaves coming in, and then I'm not really seeing any roots. Let's see. I'm not really seeing any roots here yet after 16 days. Oh, there's a root, a small root there trying to come in. So, and that was one of the yellow ones. So it looks like it's working for the yellow ones. This is once again after 16 days. We got some leaf productions happening. Okay. Now this one actually has some good roots. So I'm not really able to, pick that straight out of the sphagnum moss. So once again, it has been 16 days and this one really sprouted with some roots. It is hard to get that sphagnum moss off of the roots, but these are the 6 that have roots on them. There's 3, 4, actually there's just 4 with roots. And then the other 2, even though they don't have any roots on them yet, they do have, like this one has a leaf coming in. And then these were the last 2 that I put in the bag actually. And then this one, that little node there, looks like it's gotten longer. So hopefully something starts happening. It has been 16 days. And we have some roots, especially on this one here. All right, y'all, and then this is the second bag. It's the same as the first bag. There's some leaves growing in. There is a root there. More leaves trying to come in. This is what this bag is looking like. We see several root startings on this one. We see a leaf production, but no roots has started on this one. This one may end up going bye-bye if it doesn't. And this has been after 16 days, so we'll still wait for that one. And this one was going to go bye-bye, but I did notice that is a root here. So this one was saved by the little root there starting. And then this one has a root starting as well with numerous leaves. Here's another one where it has a leaf production but not really any roots, so that's going to go up here with this one. It has been 16 days, so we can wait a little longer. And then once again, that one has been saved by that little root. Now these were interesting. Now these do have some roots on it. The sphagnum moss, it's really difficult when you use that to get the sphagnum moss off of those roots, but I'm just going to leave the rest of that sphagnum moss on there. But you guys can see how long those roots are on this particular one. And also, if you have some ends that have been rotten away, like the brown mushy spots, just cut those off. So I went ahead and cut all of those off. And actually in the other bag, it had one of these vines was completely rotten away. So I just threw that away, of course. But this one's very interesting. It has a lot of leaves trying to come in there. And then the roots are like very tiny. Is that even a root coming in? Yeah, this one's very interesting. It's like not really a root coming in anywhere. But the leaves are just kind of popping up everywhere. So there's different spots where roots can come in, but the leaves has definitely popped in. So it looks like out of all of these, we have 1, 2, 3. We have 4 that have some roots, and then we have 3 that doesn't. So this is after day 16. All right, back to the monstera plant. Now remember, we left off with it looking like this. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and cut this branch right here off, and from the looks of it, looks like we can get about 3 cuttings from here. So we're gonna cut below each of the nodes. So the node is basically the spot where the leaf kind of splits off at. You want to make sure that each cutting has a node. Also, usually you'll be able to see an aerial root by your nodes. So if you can get that aerial root in your cutting, that'll be good for obviously roots, because the roots will come from the aerial root. But you do want to make sure that your cutting has a node. So we're going to cut right underneath where that leaf kind of splits off at. That is the node, and we're going to cut under there for our cuttings. So once again, make sure you're cutting, and also we're going to cut above this. So these little navel things, these are called auxiliary buds, and that is where leaves can sometimes form. So on this cutting, you can actually see where a leaf is coming out of that auxiliary bud and above the aerial root. So we're going to cut above here and under the aerial root. So here's one cutting. Again, we're going to cut above where a leaf can start forming in, but under the aerial root. And then our last cut is going to be here. Now this leaf, you can also see if we can make another cut. So yeah, you can make another cut for this one, but you want to go make sure it's above where a new leaf can come in. Leaf can come in here, so you want to make sure that if you cut this one off, which I'm going to because it's leaning, it's also leaning, we want to make sure we cut above here. So we're going to cut another one here. Now this is my other leaf that's kind of hanging out here, but I'm not going to make this a cutting because I would have to cut here. And if I cut here, the rest of this would be cut off as well. So we don't want to make a cutting for this leaf. What I can do is I can just, I am going to just end up cutting it off, but I'm not going to make a cutting from it. So there it is now. Once again, this is the only one that's leaning, so this one is going to just be cut off, but we won't be able to make a cutting from it without sacrificing other leaves. So here are my cuttings. As you can see, each one has a node, basically where the plant splits off. Each one has a node, and then each one also has an aerial root. You will usually see an aerial root by where the nodes are at. The aerial roots are the auxiliary buds, whereas the leaves can form. Those aren't necessarily needed, but they're good if you have them. I do like having aerial roots on mine. They do just say that you just need a node, but I like having aerial roots on there because roots can form from those too. And then this one has an auxiliary bud there. There is an auxiliary bud there. There is one here where a leaf is forming, and then there's one here. But all you need is the node to grow roots. So we have 4. I'm just going to go ahead and let these kind of callus over. So callousing over is basically where I cut it from, making that parts dry out instead of having it wet right after a cut before placing it in substrate. So just basically drying that part out. Alright, so here are our 4 cuttings. Here's the 4 cuttings. They have completely calloused over. It hasn't been exactly 24 hours, but they have now been calloused over. So now we can go ahead and place those in our substrates. So here I have my regular substrates that I use for all my potting plants. If you have not watched my video of how to make soil and water for your plants, go ahead and watch that and you'll be able to see how I made this. I have cocoa coir and then I have some perlite. Now the cocoa coir is the one that does not have any drainage holes because we'll be able to actually see how much water we're giving it, but also I'll be able to see how the roots do in cocoa coir. So these are all just experiments because we do know the water method works, but we don't know if any of these method works. So we're going to kind of experiment with these 3 substrates. I am going to put 2 of the cuttings in here and then 1 of the other cuttings in each one of these. And I do have 2 bamboo stakes because I'm pretty sure this and this is going to need a stake because they're not as high as, you know, they're not as high or stable as the jar is. All right, so I do know for sure I want this cutting. I want this cutting to go in this substrate only because the leaf has like a brown spot on it. I don't know if that means anything at all, but we're going to put this one in here with another one. And then I'm going to go ahead and put that stake kind of like in the middle here. And then we're going to put another cutting. So let's see. This one also has some brown marks on it as well, but it does have a big aerial root. We're going to put that one in here too. And then we're just going to cover that up with more soil. To put a little ribbon around these 2 so that it's just holding it up, and then we're just going to put this in a bright area, and then let's go ahead and get the other ones. All right, so the other ones, I think I'm going to put this one in here just because it's a little bigger than the one that has the leaf already growing. So the one that has the leaf kind of already growing, we're just gonna stick it in here. Now I've also used just this jar because once the roots start growing and I'm able to see the roots start growing, I can always, if I can't get the roots out of the top of this jar because it's kind of narrow, if I can't get it out the top of this jar, this is just a regular jar, okay? It doesn't cost much for these type of jars. I can just end up breaking this jar, of course, not really shattering it, but just breaking it just to get the roots out. And then of course you can, you know, wash the roots off if it has any glass shatters in it. But this is not an expensive jar, so it's not really a big deal if I had to break this jar. But I don't have another jar that has a bigger opening that I care enough about to break. And once again, these jars are not expensive at all, but we're just going to get that coconut coir around the peel, which is just the stem. And we're gonna need, looks like we're gonna need some more. And that should be good. All right, so our last one is going to be the perlite. Just gonna try and dig like a hole there, and then we can go ahead and put this one, bury this one in the perlite. Now I have already rinsed this perlite out, so that's why I'm just kind of dumping it in here. It has been already rinsed and drained, so yeah, I said I needed the stake in here. So yeah, we're gonna tie this to the stake, and then we'll be able to put more of the perlite in because this is coming out. So let's go and do that first. All right, so this string is specifically for plants, and once again, everything I'm using is going to be in my Amazon cart. Is going to be titled plants in the description box. All right, so I did tie this in 2 spots, one at the top here and one at the bottom, and then I ended up going back to this one, and I did end up tying this as well because this substrate, the coconut coir, is a very loose substrate, so I didn't want this to be moving around while it's trying to get some roots. And then of course our substrate with our 2 leaves here are also tied just once at the top. So we're just going to give these all a good watering, and then we're going to place them all in a bright area. So here are the leaves and the brown that I was talking about on that one, and then on this one it also has some brown tips, so hopefully it does good in this substrate. And then in this one, the leaf, actually the last 4 leaves, they all weren't as good as the one that I first took off, and that could be due to them being, you know, linked over longer than the ones that I first took off. And then with this one here, this one actually looks pretty good. That is some perlite dust on there. I'm gonna make sure those aren't bugged, but that's the perlite dust. Yeah, this one that's going to be in the coconut coir, this leaf is the one that's, out of all of them, doesn't have any brown on them. So yeah, this is really going to be an experiment because these leaves aren't as strong or in great shape like the ones that I propagated in the water. So like I said, I haven't propagated these leaves at all in water or any of the substrates that I'm doing now. I was able to do it in the water successfully, so hopefully these also do great in the substrates. We won't be able to see how well they're doing. I guess we will just be able to tell if the leaves just start to, you know, get really, really bad. I guess then we'll know if it's rotting away or what it's doing, but we won't be able to see the root production, so hopefully they do well. Now that I did do those cuttings, I'm able to take these ribbons and cords off around the moss pole. Now that my plant is not in jeopardy of snapping off, those can come off as well since I don't need those anymore. So now that I made some cuttings, I can downsize this pot a little bit. I do have 4 stems here, and the pot, it is a little big for just, you know, the amount of leaves that I have now. So I will be able to downsize this pot some in the spring when I do my repotting. So yeah, I will be downsizing that. Now this one here, it's a little young because I grew this one from seed. So this one here, I grew that from seed. So that one is still young, but I will be downsizing this pot in a little bit. Spring is almost here, so yeah. Alright, and that is going to conclude this video of propagating some leaves, and then we also propagated some vines. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and then don't forget to hit that bell so that you don't miss the next notification of when I post my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye!